Hi, John.
Hello, you all right?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I love your jumper, Cardi.
Thanks.
She's got
Even.
it on.
I know. And you've got a little Jack in the back there as well.
Mhm. He's who people are really coming to see, right? They're not coming.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, hello. Nice hair. Look at that haircut's fantastic.
Thank you. Have
Love
you not
that.
seen it? Of course you haven't seen it because no one's been out the house for a year and a half.
Seen anything?
Love your Cardi. They love your Cardi. Oh my God, they love your Cardi.
The people have gone a bit bananas for the Cardi.
So lovely.
We're still
though.
making the yarn. Oh,
What are these people?
Jack.
46 of them coming to see you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Wonderful to see so many of you. San Francisco, Cape Cod. And this is part of our kind of In Conversation With series, which is fairly new. So
Second time.
it is the second time. Yeah. We started at our mill open weekend this summer and just having chats with like-minded woolly folk on Zoom. And I think we enjoyed hearing, chatting about people's creativity and hearing about their process. And we kind of enjoyed it so much that I think we just wanted it to continue. So so then we started asking more people if they wanted to join us. So it's great that you folks are interested in it as well. And without further ado, I'll hand it over to Katie. Take it away. Nice. Thank you for joining us, Katie.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, everyone, for turning up. This is amazing and lovely and slightly overwhelming. I was saying to Sonia and Helena before we started that I haven't really done a live thing before. I think many of you know me from my Green Bean podcast, which I record and share on YouTube, which is quite a different thing than speaking live. So I'm really nervous, but happy to be here. And that's Jack, by the way.
Tell us about where your fascination with mushrooms started and then how exactly that translated into this beautiful new Cardi design of yours.
Okay, so thank you. So I think some people know, but not everybody knows, that my background before I got into illustration was in biology. So I've always been fascinated with wildlife and plants and growing things. And since moving to Devon, which I did, counting, 8 years ago, I just have been spending loads of time on Dartmoor and seeing mushrooms and lichens and mosses every day. And that's where my inspiration comes from. I get so I spend an hour or so out walking Jack every day, and that's where my ideas come from. And I don't know, something about this design in particular, it just wandered into my head fully formed, like, oh, I could just see the mushrooms lining up around the yoke, and I knew instantly that it wanted to be in John Arben's yarns, particularly these darker shades of the swap balls. It was just, I knew it had to be that. Sometimes when you do designs, there's like loads of swatching and going backwards and forwards and trying things out. This one was just like, no, do a swatch. This is what it looks like. It's ready to go.
Very handy.
Yes, very handy.
It seemed that if anyone's following Katie's Instagram, she's been out looking at all the very exciting mushrooms. We've had quite a lot this year.
It's
been a very
been good
year.
this year. It has been really good this year.
Actually, somebody sent me a Guardian article this morning saying it's because of the weather, because it's been extra warm and extra damp. It's a bumper year for mushrooms.
Mushrooms everywhere.
Mushrooms are everywhere.
We went for a walk over the weekend and we found some that were about this big in a field. They looked like almost like portobello mushrooms or something. They were huge and that like gentle kind of fawn shade. They looked like they might have been edible. We did not check, but
they sound, if they're in the field, they're probably parasol mushrooms, which are edible, but I'm not brave enough to eat them.
No, I definitely don't know. Yeah, I think you have to go with an expert, don't you?
They say don't pick it if you're not sure. So
yeah, very, very risky. Also, I don't like the taste of them that much. So
yeah, I think the only ones I can spot are chanterelles because they are quite distinctive.
Yes.
And when I kind of look back in the grand scheme of things, it's been about 3 or 4 months preparing the design, and for folks who aren't familiar with my work, I am also an illustrator, so when I publish a design I always want to put it in a beautiful illustrated booklet. I'm just going to grab it.
Yeah, show us.
Here it is.
Very cute.
Very good. I was so happy when I opened the box from the printers. So it's got kids and adult sizes, so it's like a double-sided booklet. So you've got adult sizes from one end and then you flip it upside down and it's got the kid sizes in the back.
Squirrels.
And why squirrels?
Well, that's a good question.
Well, they're out there eating the mushrooms.
Yeah, red squirrels as well, not brown squirrels.
They're seasonal. I like traditionally, I guess when you publish a knitting pattern, you're supposed to have a photograph of a person wearing it. That would be ideal, but I'm a really slow last minute knitter, so when this had to go to the printers, I did not have a finished cardigan, so I couldn't put any photos in the booklet. So this is like problem solving. It's like I'll just draw a picture of it on a squirrel and then the photos come later.
Perfect.
It's very handy.
Well, it suits the squirrel very much.
I think so, and I feel like Jack's probably going to have a version at some point, so it can be matchy.
Very nice.
He doesn't mind wearing a jumper.
That would be wonderful.
Oh, do you want to tell us about the different elements of the jumper? Because I know you've got some very cute little dots on your...
I do. So it's definitely a pattern that's not for the faint-hearted, shall we say. It's so the first technique that you're going to come up against is needing to do colour work with 3 colours at once, which is a little bit of a headache, but it's only for about 7 rounds, so it's not the whole of the yoke, but it definitely there's some complicated colour work going on there. And it's knitted in the round, so you cast on at the neck and knit downwards, and then you need to cut up the front. So that's also a technique that strikes fear into the heart of many knitters.
It's so much fun though. I think anyone who's tried it like once suddenly is like, wow, this is incredible and I can steek everything. It's one of those things that sounds scary, but then when you've done it, it's actually really like liberating. It
is, but I know that it might scare people, so I made a video tutorial to go with the pattern, which people can find on my YouTube. It's not only for people who've bought the pattern, it's just there. You can find it for free on YouTube. So if you just want to watch somebody take some scissors to their knitting, I recommend it. And then once you've done the steek, then you have to embroider all of the dots on the mushrooms. Those are done with French knots, which is a bit of a finicky little embroidery stitch. It took me a long time to learn how to do it, but once you've seen somebody do it properly, it's like, oh, that makes sense. I needed to have it demonstrated to me rather than learn it from an illustration, if that makes sense.
Yes.
I have a friend who is a professional embroidery artist, and she showed me how to do it properly.
There we go. That'll help.
Yeah.
Have you then shown her your jumper to make sure that it's up to scratch, or didn't you dare?
I haven't dared.
Very sensible.
And we have Helen in the chat was asking, is this the first time you've embroidered one of your knits?
It actually is. I've never done it before. I've always seen it on like Instagram and Pinterest and thought, oh, that's a really beautiful thing to do, and never got around to it. But this is a design that just begs for it. I didn't even, when I was swatching for it, I didn't even try knitting the white dots as part of the color work. It just looked
Too much.
yeah.
It would be such a nightmare, wouldn't it? Because you'd have such long floats.
Yeah, so I tried a couple of different embroidery stitches. I tried just little single stitches, and they didn't look quite as nice. It had to be French knots, and they give it a little bit of texture as well.
Makes it
Kind
fun.
of nice. Yeah.
Oh, Teresa is saying, could you talk a little bit about the 4 inches of ease? So could folks do it with 2 or maybe even a bit more than 4?
I think, yeah, it could be a little bit either way. This actually, confession, my gauge was a little bit off when I knitted my sample, and this is bigger than it's meant to be. So I'm going to stand up and show you what it looks like.
Or could you turn a bit slower, just because you're not picking up on the camera? Everything on camera, I find, has to be done slower than you think. Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Turning. There we go.
No rotating.
So this has about 6 inches of ease on me.
Looks great.
Thanks.
A few inches either way. Just I want
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. I should show you my ribbon as well on the button band.
Ooh, very nice.
It's going to focus? No. No chance.
That's the new ribbon that's got the squirrels on it.
And owls and mushrooms and hedgehogs and rabbits.
All the woodland creatures.
Yeah. And I designed it to go on steek, so it's vertical. It's quite often when you get ribbon, it's got the pattern going that way.
Yeah.
And that's not very pleasing when you stitch it on your cardigan.
Perfect accessory for everybody once they've chopped their knitting.
Yeah, definitely. And did you have you got some special stitch markers as well? I think I saw on your Insta.
I do have some stitch markers which I just totally forgot about. I'm just laughing at the question I've seen from Laura in the chat about how long it took me to knit my cardigan. Too long is the answer.
I think I remember going for a walk with you in like the summer, like we were properly like.
I feel like, Sonia, it was probably April.
Yeah.
I am a really, really slow knitter.
But yeah, so stitch markers and some ribbon, a few other bits and pieces that you can get from Katie's shop.
Yeah,
go with it.
And the pattern, of course. Yeah. And then we have the kit for the yarn, don't we? And we've got some yarn here with us. We went to grab some.
It's not even been labelled yet.
No, it's brand new. It's probably destined for someone's kit.
Yeah.
So there's warp balls.
The dark and the mid in the DK.
And the dark is just 100% warp balls, which is like, that's the natural colour of its fleece. And it's a lovely bouncy one. And then the mid is like a pale or a mid-tone grey, really. And that is blended with Exmoor Blueface, which is like our local kind of crossbreed sheep. And again, it's got that same lovely bouncy quality.
And that's the fibre.
Yeah, so you can get a sense.
So anyone who's feeling really adventurous can spin theirs.
Spin your own. Hopefully there's someone out there who might be doing that.
So amazing.
It would be just glorious, wouldn't it? I know.
And then these little minis.
They're so Christmassy, just those three by themselves,
I remember Sonia messaging me when I ordered the yarn for this design saying, because it was probably in April or May, saying, what are you buying these horrible Christmas colours for?
So those two are knit by numbers. So they are 100% merino. And then the green is our apple door, which is called Spicy Pippin, but used to be called Mossy Bog, which was a colour that Katie designed for last year's open weekend.
Yeah.
And it was the first apple door colour we did, and we loved it so much we kept it. We just had to give it a new apple-based name.
Yeah, and it is the perfect kind of mossy green.
Yes.
So does because I haven't, oh no, maybe I have. Has it got like a bit of a textural difference? Would you say the yolk, can you feel that the mushrooms are a little bit softer?
They're definitely, yeah, you can feel that they're softer. And I think also the different textures of the fibre makes the mushrooms stand out a bit, because they're flat colours and the swart balls is a bit more like heathered. It really makes the mushrooms go, hey, I'm here.
Yeah, that's nice.
As mushrooms do.
They do when they're that colour.
If you're going to go to all the trouble of 3 different colours in colour work, then you want it to stand out, don't you?
You want people to know it's there. I'm seeing we've got lots of questions.
We do. Shall we get to them? First, I just have to say that Nicola saw a squirrel eating a mushroom the other day.
I would have loved to see that.
Obviously, this was somewhere in your brain whilst you were designing the cover. And then Jessica would like to know if you're tempted to embroider your sewing projects or do a bit more embroidery now you've started.
I have several half-finished embroidered sewing projects in this pile over here that we don't talk about of unfinished projects. Yes, I'm always tempted to embroider my sewing projects. I really love doing embroidery. It's just, everything takes so long.
How much of the ribbon do they need to put on the inside button bands? What's the length they need to have?
So I got both button bands covered with 1 meter of ribbon here, and that leaves you enough to hold it under and not have a raw edge. So I'd say for pretty much all the adult sizes you could get away with 1 meter.
Unless you want something that's much longer, like a sort of under the bun length.
Yeah, unless you want to really lengthen it.
Okay. And then Nancy would like to know, are there other versions to look at differences in colour or fit? Did you do a test knit?
I don't do a test knit because I don't have the capacity to kind of administrate that myself, but I did have 2 people test knit it, and I will be sharing pictures of them hopefully over the next few days. They haven't sent me photos yet.
There will be some
different sizes than me. I will also say that I don't know, this is something that maybe people don't publicize enough in this industry, but I did not write or grade this pattern myself. I employed someone with more experience than me to help me do that. Someone who has worked for knitting magazines and has been in the industry for years and years and years. So that is really helpful. Really, really helpful.
It is a real pain in the bum doing all that grading if you don't have a brain for it. So
I don't do jumper patterns for that very reason. It's a lot of brain work.
It really is.
For framework, having somebody else on my team to help with that was a real game changer for me in terms of actually being able to get this pattern out of my brain and onto people's
Very
needs.
different skill.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Betsy asked, have you made any other designs with mushrooms or squirrels?
Or just, do you have
I'm
any
going
other
to.
designs that you could show us? What else have you?
No more mushrooms or squirrels yet, but I'm not going to rule it out. I've got one other jumper here that I can show you. I did my beetle jumper earlier this year. You can see there's definitely a wildlife theme with the kind of work that I'm interested in doing. So yeah, beetles. This was in river knits. This is in 4-ply. So again, not a pattern for the faint-hearted knitter, although you only have to do 2 colours for the yoke. not to bring it once.
Because it's in Chimera, isn't it? That magical kind of color changing yarn that they
Yes.
have. So
Yeah, so it's all of these contrast beetles are just in one yarn, which is very nice.
I'm going to make one, but it's going to have black gold of the sun beetles.
Oh, that will be
beautiful color.
gorgeous.
I decided on the main colour, but it's also for a much smaller person, so it's easier. You've also got your cardigan that's got Jack on the pockets, isn't it?
Yes, that is true. I did not, for some reason, bring that into the studio. It's a that's a seamed cardigan, so it's knitted flat in pieces and assembled, and it comes with little intarsia pockets. Initially, when I published it, it was just dogs, but due to popular demand, I included cats and rabbits and guinea pigs.
So now it's going to be squirrels and mushrooms as well, yeah?
Yes, one day.
Sorry.
I feel like a proper 80s intarsia jumper with a big squirrel mushroom motif would be a lot of fun.
Yes.
That would be wonderful. Yeah,
One might have to
that's
make
like
it very fluffy.
an animal wearing a jumper. I think that would get a lot of love.
Mm-hmm.
And then on that jumper is an animal wearing a jumper.
Yes.
Yeah.
And another one, and another one, and they're all. It could be knitting a little jumper with an animal wearing a jumper, couldn't
Oh
it?
my
That
goodness.
could be it, and it just goes on forever. Yeah.
Sorry.
Like now that's all anyone's gonna want. No one will leave you alone until until you put it out there into the world. On a more serious note, Helen would like to know if you consider the cardigan unisex, and would you recommend additional shaping for someone with broad shoulders? I know you'll have thoughts about the unisex nature of the cardi, so.
Excellent question, Helen. I like to consider all of my designs genderless, but I realize that's difficult when people have different anatomies, and obviously I'm lacking certain anatomy that people might have more of. So in terms of broad shoulders, I think that the person who helped me write the pattern has covered this in terms of it's not. You often get those patterns that to make the bigger sizes, they just grade everything out and you end up with a really wide neck. You don't need to be afraid of that. What I would say is that if you have a large bust, you might want to consider some decreases after that because it doesn't have any body or waist shaping. So if you're someone who likes to accentuate this part of your body, you might want to consider some shaping after the yoke. But I think the way that the yoke sizes are graded, you should be able to choose pretty reliably based on this circumference. I hope that makes sense. I hope that answers your question, Helen.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. If not, let us know again in the
Yeah,
chat.
do.
Oh, look, they've said yes, thank you. So that's perfect. Mary and Veronica asking about a lichen.
Oh yes, it's coming.
There we are.
I don't know why I stalled on it. I'm just wondering, I wonder if I've got it right here. I'm taking a random bag as like 15 in progress project bags here. I'm wondering if I've pulled out the right one, and I have. I can show you the progress. The progress is not much progress since you last saw it, but tentatively hoping it can come out next year.
Oh, it's beautiful. Could you give us a close-up? Could you hold it a bit closer?
Ooh, oh, there we go.
Wash out the colours a bit, but
what colours is it in?
it's not in your yarn, sorry.
That's all
fine.
right. We don't mind. You know, we also use
other things.
Yeah. You know.
It's in 7 4-ply from River Knits again, so the same yarn as the main colour on the beetle jumper. The background is just a natural,
Right.
which I believe is called Bear Brown. And The contrast is a colour that Becky from Rivernit's dyed especially for this project called Lichen Fancier,
Very nice.
which is already available. I just
Because you took too long.
yes, basically yes. My design process is very
Long.
unpredictable. Long is also a good word for it, Helena.
It's allowed.
I
A lot of thought goes into these.
It's something that I talk about a lot on my podcast, is how I've tried to remove deadlines from my life because I find them very stressful and not good for my mental health. But
Yes.
I'm also somebody who kind of needs a deadline to make things happen. So the tension between those two things gets very complicated. So the reason that the mushroom cardigan is out today is because I had this event to work towards.
Yes.
It's a tangible deadline. I can make things happen. But yeah, I also, it's complicated.
Yes.
And I just try to be honest and open about that because I'm just one person and I work out of this tiny room, and I don't know, I feel like it's easy to imagine that things are bigger and more glamorous than they are, and then they're not very big and not very glamorous at all.
Ruth was just asking, is that DK fingering? I don't know which jumper that one was for, but
I think it's this one, which
that
is
one is DK. Yeah.
Yeah.
And somebody also asked earlier about the buttons, I think.
Oh yeah.
These buttons are from lovely Maggie at Textile Garden, who has, without a doubt, the best buttons of all buttons.
She has a very good selection.
She has a very good selection. I would also like to share a tip that I discovered on her website, because sometimes the way that she has things categorized on the website isn't easiest to find what you want by size. But if you just put the size in the search box, it shows you all the buttons of that size that you're looking for, which is really
That's
helpful.
useful.
Not mentioning who it was who needed that tip.
Don't know who it might be.
No idea.
And then going back to the conversation we were having earlier, Teresa was saying, as a creative person, I'm sure you're always having ideas for future projects. So how do you keep that under control, and how do you try, and do you have any like methods for like trying to do one thing at a time?
Yeah, she does the mushrooms first and then goes back to the lichen afterwards.
Teresa, this is a constant work in progress for me. I don't have an answer to this question, but it is a continuous question of, because I have more ideas than I can realize, and it's a question of figuring out, like for this cardigan, getting someone else on board to help me write the pattern is the only reason that this pattern could come out this year. So figuring out what parts of the process I can share with other people and what parts need to be mine. I also have I don't know if people have heard of a thing called Trello, which people use to manage their to-do lists and stuff. I have a huge sprawling Trello board where I just throw ideas whenever I have them. So I know that they're safe if I need to come back to them at some point, and it is ridiculous. And you've made me think maybe I should talk about this on my podcast at some point, because maybe it's interesting to people. I never thought about that, but yeah, thanks, Teresa.
Yeah, the creative process is always interesting because everyone does it differently. Like here at the mill, because there's a few of us that design patterns, we all come at it with completely different way, and we all just stare at each other and go, why do you do it like that? It's so confusing, but it's just nobody ever thinks, oh, what, you do it that way, until you see someone else doing it. So you always learn new interesting ideas.
That is true. That is true.
I think that's one of the reasons we like to like as John Arbon Textiles now, rather than as ourselves, that we like to collaborate with different people. You know, like whether we've done some like hand dyed specials with River Knits, Becky and Marcus, or like, you know, we've commissioned you to sort of illustrate things for us in the past. And I think it's just nice working with other kind of like-minded folks, but also then you get these ideas that are a bit different or a bit left field from how you yourself would kind of work.
Often people come to us and go, I want to do this, can you help? And we're all like, yeah, that sounds fun, let's do it. So
definitely.
Yeah, it's kind of the magic of putting different creative brains together, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Jessica has said something quite interesting, which I'll just kind of read out. And I think it's definitely something that everyone can empathize with. And if they can't, then I think, you know, you're probably not being honest with yourself. But I'll just read it out. When I look at most knitters, they appear to produce so many things so quickly, I start to feel discouraged. So I'm grateful for the refreshing reassurances that it is fine to take things slow and enjoy the process.
Often they might look like they're doing lots of things, but you'll probably find that they've got, you know, a huge pile of half finished things. So occasionally they'll go on a spurt of finishing them. I know for myself, I've probably got at least 15 unfinished projects at home, some of which might not take very long to finish and others may take a very, very long time. But there's a good chance that I might say finish 2 or 3 things within a month, but then you won't see a finished item for me for another 3 months because I'll be working on something that takes longer. So yeah, it's a difficult one. And I know, again, it's that perception of what everyone is seeing on like Instagram and so on.
Yeah, social media makes it tricky, that sort of thing, doesn't it? It really.
Well, yeah, and I think it kind of distracts from why we knit or crochet or whatever craft it is that we're doing. It's like probably the reason we got into it is because we enjoyed the process. Because if we didn't enjoy the process, there's no way we would have forged ahead with it as a craft, because it's really slow and tedious. Yes. So yeah, I think what Jessica said about being reminded to appreciate the process of it. I have to remind myself of this as well, because I can get a bit downhearted about how slow I am to finish things. I think I've finished 3 garments this year, which is a lot, but one of them was 3/4 knitted last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the other thing, isn't it? Is like, because it's a slower craft, you might be like living with a certain project for ages. So sometimes I feel like I never finish anything. And then actually when you look back at, like, I now have a little record and it's literally just like a document on my phone. And every time I finish something, I just write down like some sort of note, even if it's just like finished a sock. Yeah. And actually then it's amazing if I go back and look at all the things I have finished, I've forgotten about half of them, in all honesty, especially if some of them are gifts and things.
Yeah, but then you don't see them all the time.
But it is, you know, it's the process that's, at least for me personally, like I find if I don't knit for like a few days, maybe not a few days, but definitely if I haven't knitted for like a week, I'll start feeling really stressed and like quite aggy. And then I have to remind myself that it's probably just because like I haven't had my like therapeutic like quiet time. And then if I do a couple hours of knitting, I'll start feeling much calmer again. But you know,
Sue has just said that there's a deadline looming for the craft along.
There is a deadline looming for the craft along. There is a deadline moving.
I can't remember if I've got anything I'm supposed to finish by then. Better check.
It's not a competition. No. I think we can have some prizes for half finished things as well, can't we?
That's my kind of craft along.
Yeah. You started and took a photograph. Congratulations.
I'll have lots if we're doing it that way.
And then Natalie would like to know about your stamps and whether you enjoy kind of designing the stamps and your other bits and bobs more than knitting. Like, is it the illustration or the knitting or a bit of both?
I think something I feel extremely lucky and grateful and privileged for is that I've somehow managed to create a way of existing in the world that encompasses all of the things that I love. So at any given moment, it might seem like I enjoy illustration more than knitting, or I enjoy knitting more than sewing, or painting more than drawing, or whatever it is. But what I really love is the fact that I get to change between all of those things and like have the influence of my illustration on my knitting. This is clearly an illustrator's knitting design. And that's the thing that I love the most, is that I get to be like, oh, I don't feel like doing that today, I can do this instead. And okay, when you're working on a deadline, it's not quite as straightforward as that, but it is the variety that I love more than anything else. I always thought that I would not be the kind of person who could do a job where I had to do the same thing every day. So I feel very fortunate to have found / created this little weird corner of the internet where I get to do all the things that I love and people don't mind watching. That's nice. So I make these in collaboration with Faye of Provenance Craft Company. She has a laser cutter and turns my illustrations into these. Will you focus if I hide my face?
Nah.
No.
That's okay. They're little leaves.
Little leaves, and obviously nobody is going to be surprised to see some little mushrooms. So I did these for the first time earlier this year to go with the beetle pattern, and they were so popular that I thought I'd better bring them back. And by popular request this time I made them so they're in sets of 4, and you get 2 that are closed rings to go over your knitting needles and 2 that have a little hooky claw, so you can use them with crochet or as a progress keeper or in your ears.
Whoa.
So those have been really fun to make, although people might not know when they see them in their beautiful boxes completed in a gorgeous photo. Actually, it's me who sits there and twists the wire and puts them together, and maybe that is the reason why knitting the cardigan took so long, is because I'm also spending a little bit of time twisting together stitch markers
And painting them.
So what happens with the coloured ones, I paint the wood as a flat sheet, and then I send it to Faye and she laser cuts them out of a painted sheet. I do not sit there painting individual stitch markers. I wondered if people might like to see the original artwork from the knitting pattern. There we go.
Squirrels.
Oh, they're big. They're always much bigger than I think they're going to be.
They are. I work at a bigger scale because you can get more details in and then shrink it down. So they're about 50% bigger than the actual pattern, I guess. There you go.
They're great. And those are painted?
Those are painted with gouache.
Yeah.
That paint that begins with G.
And has too many vowels.
Which is it's a water-based paint, like watercolor, but it's opaque. So it's nice. I like working with it.
We've got someone, Veronique, saying she's an Irish cottage knitter. So she has to make everything that's a circular pattern into a flat knit. So
I'm Veronique. I I'm only a recent convert to knitting in the round. I always actually, if I can, prefer to construct my garments flat because I like the structure of seams. I will only knit in the round if I'm obligated to, like by knitting colour work, which is not my favourite thing to knit flat. I would always much rather knit flat, so I'm with you there. But it must be a headache converting, because so many patterns are seamless these days. Converting them to knit flat must be a little bit of a nightmare.
Yeah, and that's halfway to being a designer, I'd say, isn't it?
Definitely.
Doing all of that work.
Definitely.
We had Elena asked what the craft along is, and we've been doing a 20th anniversary John Arbon Textiles craft along since June.
Yeah, since the open weekend.
Yeah, that's finishing up at the end of the year. We're doing our last Zoom session for it in a couple of weeks.
Oh, I think we're going to keep going with the Zooms
but
the official craft along, yeah. So it's every first Tuesday of the month. We have like a Zoom kind of craft along knit and natter session. And
access that through Eventbrite as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you book this through Eventbrite, if you have a look, there'll be another one in there for the craft along, so you can come and show us what you've been working on and see what everyone else has been doing, which is always fun.
It's a really nice session, actually. I think we've done maybe 3 or 4, so now people are starting to like get a little bit more comfortable with it. And also it's amazing seeing we've got quite a few people who like started with a particular thing and maybe started with like sketches, and then you see it kind of translated through swatching and then through like the finished item. I always love seeing what folks are spinning as well. Veronique has just said that she's been following you from the start and enjoyed every single one of your podcasts and loved your creations.
Thank you.
That's
so
nice
much
to know.
I can't believe it's coming up to my 4 years podcast anniversary next year. I have that strange feeling where I feel like I've both been doing it forever, like I can't remember life before, and also like how can it possibly be 4 years already?
Yes.
This time over the last couple of years has been so bizarre.
Yes. We've both been here for about the same amount of time that you've been podcasting, and that again feels like it has been forever, but also not.
Yeah, it creeps up on you, doesn't it, in a funny way. I remember talking to you, Katie, when you were saying you were going to start the podcast, and I was like, showing your face on the internet? Why would you do that? And now, we also have a podcast here at John Arbon Textiles for the last couple of months. So
now it's normal.
Yeah, it's the way of the world in 2021.
Another question from Ruth Ann about how far to travel. So this is actually a common misconception, is that people think that I live in the middle of Dartmoor and walk out of my house and it looks like this grand vista. It's not. I live in a little village. It takes us about 20 minutes to drive to Dartmoor, so it's close enough that we can go every day, but far enough that it's not like a just trundle up my house and be hiking on the hills. It's I would love to be closer, but you have to have a lot more money to be able to live there, and
yes,
I do not.
One of the
maybe one day.
I live in Linton, and while we are like the most remote town in England or something crazy like that, it's 45 minutes to anywhere from Linton, but you can just walk out your house and you're in the Valley of Rock. So in the past year, that's been very handy when you can only go on a walk from your doorstep. It's like, well, that's fine, because my doorstep is this very beautiful area, and I'm very aware that that's not something most people get, but at the same time you can't have takeaways and anything else, and there's no food. You have to drive an hour to get to a supermarket, so it's like one or the other. And I'm sure it's the same where you are. There's not a lot.
There's not a lot. There's not a lot. but you know, as you say, there are benefits to that and drawbacks. It was something I really appreciated during the pandemic, was not feeling hemmed in by where we were located. I think it would have been a really different experience for people in the city being in lockdown. But yeah, I was in that very lucky position because I was already working from home and doing a lot of work online, that it wasn't really a lifestyle change for me. I just didn't get to see my friends and family as often as I would normally, but the actual day-to-day of it didn't look very different from my normal.
Yeah.
Which I think was very different than how it was for most people.
Ruth was just saying, what ability level is the pattern?
The pattern is definitely not beginner friendly, I would say. You need to have some kind of confidence and some experience doing color work to handle the three color work. That's a mouthful, but I did the words. There are video tutorials for finishing and cutting the steek and for doing the embroidery, so there is some extra instruction there, but the pattern does assume that you have experience knitting stranded color work. I hope that helps.
Would you say maybe start with the beautiful Beatlemania instead?
I would say start with another color work pattern.
Start with some mittens or a hat?
Yes, because both of my patterns are, I force the knitting to do things that aren't the easiest to do. So you need to handle long floats with your color work, which is not something you want to be doing on your first color work project. So I would pick something small like a hat or a mitten that has a really small repeat to begin with, to get comfortable with the technique, and then you'll be ready for some beetles or some mushies. I also, actually, going off on a real tangent, I heard about an amazing way for handling color work, is that you can knit it like you would knit slip stitch color work. So you would knit 2 colors in a round and slip the stitches that you would do with the third color, and then do another pass of the same round and knit those stitches, slipping all the ones that you knitted before. That was a terrible explanation. I'm gonna have to learn how to do that technique and make a video of it, because I think it's a game changer. What a star.
Now he can have some dinner.
Can have some, don't say the word.
Can have some of that food that happens at this time.
Yes, he can have some food. Good boy. You've been so good. Good lad.
Thank you to everyone in the chat. We're chuffed to bits to hear you've enjoyed it. Yeah, it's nice that
someone wants to listen to what we're saying.
We hope you all enjoy knitting your mushroom Cardis.
I can't wait to see them. I really can't wait.
I know, it'll be great, won't it? Well, maybe we can have another conversation at some point around a year from now, and we can see who's made them and who hasn't. And how far people have got. No pressure at all, but it'd just be nice to check in.
Maybe Jack will be wearing his mushroom cardigan by then. Look, he's going to sleep.
That would be very exciting. And yeah, if anyone if folks have enjoyed this, do come along to our craft along Zoom as well if you fancy. I think the next one is on the 7th of December, and it's 6:30 p.m, which is a better time for folks on the other side of the pond. So yeah, thank you again, Katie, and you've created something so special and wonderful. I might have to, if you make a dog version, then I will make one for my mum's pooch.
Oh, cute. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you, everyone. Take care and have a nice weekend.
Bye.
Bye.